Welcome back to another episode of the Weigh In podcast. My name's Abbas and I'm joined here with Sugar Ray. How are you doing today, bro?
I'm doing all right, man. Good weekend of boxing, good undisputed. We've got a new undisputed champ, so yeah, it's been a good viewing. How about yourself? How you keeping?
I'm good, man. I think the sleep deprivation's hitting a little bit. Wars and everything that's coming together, but other than that, you're right. Like, excellent fight, early hours of the morning. Yeah, that's what we're here for. We're going to jump straight into it. Josh Taylor defeats Jose Ramirez in a genuine, proper unification bout for the light welterweight division. Just want to start off by getting your thoughts of the initial fight itself. How do you think it played out? Did it play out to how you thought it would be, or did certain things like get you caught off by surprise?
I think, I'll be honest with you, I hadn't seen too much footage of Ramirez. I was just more like living off the legend of what his namesake brought. And do you know what? Credit to him and Taylor. They put on one hell of a fight. When you, in a day of a lot of boxing politics, that's the type of fights you want to see. Undisputed, no BS. Both guys coming to the table, putting it all on there. And listen, Taylor showed that he's a notch above the rest. And what's crazy for me was, I felt like Taylor could have gone up a level if he didn't choose to brawl as much as he does. I feel like he's got technical capabilities that he doesn't show because he likes to go into wars in the trenches. But I feel that if he really wanted to be a more technical fighter, it could have been a cleaner victory for him. But, kudos to him. He went in there. He got the win. I feel like this is I'm just gonna say it. He's Britain's pound for pound best boxer right now, and I feel like more respect needs to be put on his name. Listen, and this is coming from the biggest AJ fan. He is Britain's pound for pound best boxer.
I was literally just gonna say that is a statement coming from you, who will ride for Anthony Joshua till the lights die out. Listen. But yeah, I think what you say about the fight actually strikes true for me as well, because I thought Ramirez would also be a bit more aggressive, and he was trying to on the inside and stuff. But I think certain things, I don't think Ramirez personally, like the uppercut and the shot before I floored him down, I think they caught him off guard. Talk to me about the uppercut. Talk to me about how you felt that change, or maybe even adapt to the full fight. Because for me, when I looked at that, you hit the uppercut early in this. Was it early? I can't remember if it was early or late in the.
I think you mean the uppercut that dropped him?
Yeah, the uppercut that dropped him.
The uppercut that dropped him, I believe, was in the 7th round, and then I believe was the 6th round was when he done the pullback left hook. Yeah. So, and sorry, go on.
I was gonna say them two going as close as they were. Really, I think for me, hit home for Ramirez that this is going to be a fight where now I have to knock him out.
Yeah, for sure.
So that way, like Josh Taylor, like you said, he didn't have to go as aggressive because he knew he had the scorecards in his bag. Did you feel the same way when it came to that as well at that point?
Yeah, I think the way we're speaking of it now, for me, I'm starting to believe now that Josh Taylor fought like that on purpose just to prove a point to Ramirez of, I'm going to fight you at your strength and I'm going to beat you at it. And listen, he did. And like both was like, how do I describe it? Both was in the pocket, but then exiting the pocket both times. Taylor would catch him, especially with the uppercut as well. The second knockdown, it's like Ramirez would get a bit relaxed when the referee would allow them to fight, to do a lot of infighting. And then when they separated, you saw the shoulder budge from Taylor, and then bam, hit him with the uppercut, and he just dropped him. And listen, kudos to Ramirez, because a lot of fighters like to think that they have heart. Ramirez got up and he went to slug it out still. And man, like I said, a lot of fighters say that they got a heart, and then when it comes down to it, they don't. They get their reality check that they don't. But Ramirez, for me, you got to give him full credit, because even after the knockdown, he was still going for it. Even though he hasn't got that knockout power to lay a man out, but he was still going hell for leather until the last bell. And I think by around 10th round, I think Andre Ward had pointed out that Josh Taylor, he took his foot off the acceleration a bit, but I think by then he kind of knew, like, he was just like, I've got this now. So even though the scorecard do show it was a close fight, it was technically, by technicalities, it was. But if you actually watch the fight, you would know that Taylor knew that he had the points in the bag and was just in cruise control after that.
Yeah, I was literally just going to say the same thing. When you look at it just based on the scorecards, it looks a lot closer than it was. But then when you factor in the eyeball test, as they like to say,
yeah,
you know that the fight was over and it was just a good thing of going through the motions and not doing anything silly. Just one thing I want to quickly throw out there. I know you put out the statement that you think he's the pound for pound, Britain's pound for pound king. So I want to know on the social if you guys agree with Ray, or do you think it's still Anthony Joshua? Do you have Tyson Fury in there, which we will touch on later on? There's one thing I do want to say now.
Yeah.
At this fight, you're now undisputed at 140. Yeah. What is the next step for Josh Taylor? The reason I say that is he now going to continue to fight in his division, or do you see him going up to 147 and possibly getting more lucrative fights? And the reason I say that is, as much as this fight was, and I want to touch on this quickly before we do talk about 147 possibly, the promotion side of things, we discussed it in our group chat.
Orange.
It was poor until, I believe, the press conferences, and I think personally myself, Ramirez and Taylor had both realized we need to do something ourselves.
Yeah.
To get something out there, because this fight was going under the radar to the point where I put a screenshot of Max Kellerman on his show, and someone tweeted in, "Why is the fight not being talked about as much?" and stuff like that. Talk to me about the promotional side of this fight and what you were doing it, and also we need to just give a quick shout out to 5TV for promoting the fight here in the UK.
Yeah.
Like that,
Definitely shout out to Fight TV. You gotta be thankful that they provided the stream for the fight, because as a fight as big as this, I was saying maybe 2 weeks out when Top Rank were doing their version of HBO 24/7, when they were doing their countdown show, I'm thinking to myself, a fight of this magnitude should be so many eyeballs should be watching this fight right now. It's crazy. We were saying it in our group chat, like, we didn't get it, because for me, it's like Josh Taylor's got a style. He's got the personality as well. And he's doing a historic thing. So it was just like, I don't understand what's missing that's not connecting, that he shouldn't be a bigger star. Like, maybe not pay-per-view just yet, but at least he should be doing like crazy viewing numbers. And I don't know how BT dropped the ball, because I know BT Sport also are in partnership with ESPN. So I would have just thought this is an easy matchup. How is it not connecting? So it's I don't know what Josh Taylor's got to do, whether it's a case of stay at 140 and maybe take one more fight there, like a showcase fight, just to prove his dominance again, and then fight someone at 140 and then announce after the fight, going up to 147. But I don't know, just going back to why there's no connection between Josh Taylor, at least the UK crowd. It's controversial, but do you think it's because he's Scottish? Because it kind of reminds me, I'll call it the Andy Murray effect of, remember how long it took for the British public to connect with Andy Murray, and the whole thing of when he wins, he's British, when he loses, he's Scottish. And for me, I'm thinking this is the guy that Britain needs to get behind. And we need to stop doing this thing of we only need to get behind one fighter. We can get behind many fighters. And I think Josh Taylor is someone that I feel like we need to get behind, especially in previous episodes. We've spoken about how a lot of British guys have gone to America and they faltered. And for me, Josh Taylor as well has a champion's mentality. And I think that's very much not as credited as it should be. He has gone to the States and said, whoever your champ is, I'm beating them. And there's an air of confidence that's been missing from a lot of British fighters that go there and they're just happy to be there. Whereas Josh Taylor is like, I'm not happy to be here. I'm here to take your crown and bring it back to Scotland. And I think that needs to be lauded more.
I think I'm with you on the point of the fact that he's not had the recognition. And just to literally put this into context, Usyk, Crawford are, in terms of the more current or relevant undisputed champions. So this
can't forget the young legend Bernard Hopkins as well.
And Bernard Hopkins, yes. So since with the 4 titles have come in, and Jermaine Taylor as well, we've not had. This is the type of company Josh Taylor is in. So he is Britain's first undisputed world champion. And to get onto that point that you mentioned about him being Scottish, I just personally think the spotlight hasn't been on him like other fighters have. Whereas this fight for now, I believe this catapults him into that idea of like stardom and continuing going forward. Because if I'm Josh Taylor, and I'm going to touch on this now, I don't fight at 140 anymore. And I said this in our group chat. I just think the division itself doesn't hold value in terms of namesake people, because you're just one step before 147. And 147 is where all the big names are outside of probably the heavyweight division for a casual. And I just want to do you kind of agree with that point? If you were a casual boxing fan, would you just be focused on the 147 division as somebody who would know like a Crawford and stuff compared to like the 140s and the intricacies of boxing divisions?
I think the issue with boxing sometimes is, I get it, there's too many weight classes, but there's a certain point where is that an excuse for the promoters not to put in enough effort? Because for me, Ramirez being a Mexican-American, you already know that's going to be a big crowd for Ramirez. With Josh Taylor, the UK have shown that with a lot of their bigger UK acts that they'll back them, whether it's Ricky Hatton, whether it's AJ, whether it's David Haye, whether it's Prince Naseem Hamed, they've shown that they can back their British guys. So with Josh Taylor, it's just like, I don't see it as an excuse to say, because it's like welterweight, that he shouldn't. I'm not saying, maybe you could maybe argue that he can't be a megastar at 140, but the lack of recognition he gets now because he's at 140, no, I disagree. That's mismanagement of promotion. We should have been seeing him on so many chat shows and sports shows over here. I didn't even see that. I don't like, what show was he on in the UK? And once again, for me is a thing of the mentality that he has shouldn't be underestimated. There's a lot of British guys that keep on going to the States and they don't have the mentality that Josh has. And I don't know whether that's another disconnect as well. Like I said, I'll call it the Andy Murray effect. He had the same thing where a lot of the time the British public like their fighters to have a certain level of humbleness to them, which I don't understand, because at the top level, you need a certain air of confidence to win. It's not, you can't go every day thinking you want to be the underdog. Like, sometimes it's okay to be the favorite and go in and win. And like I said, I just hope now that Josh Taylor can get the credit he deserves. And then speaking about him going to 147, I know that with Terence Crawford's contract at Top Rank running down, I think Bob Arum would want that fight. I don't think there's enough time to activate that fight, because for me, you would need to give Josh Taylor one more fight at 147 to test himself before you make him fight Crawford. So Crawford might just run down his contract, and rightfully so, because Bob Arum once again has mismanaged Crawford. He's mismanaged Josh Taylor. Well, I don't know if that's Josh Taylor and Bob Arum. I don't know if that's totally Bob's fault. And he's mismanaged a big dosser, but we'll go on to that later on.
Yeah, we will literally, we're going to touch on that towards the end. But it's interesting you say about Terence Crawford and Matt talking about the States and stuff.
Yeah.
Do you think, because for me, I think you should go to 147 personally.
Yeah.
I think someone like a Sean Porter to start off with.
Ooh.
And the reason I say that is it's a quality name that keeps your brand in America growing. Because I think for me, with respect to him being British and stuff, England is not for him to create.
Yeah.
You now need to take over the same way I would, like I say, I always go back to Amir Khan for me personally.
Yeah.
He started off in the UK, but if you knew, Amir Khan became an actual name in America.
In America, yeah.
Where his name was on at the Vegas Strip and stuff. And I don't think Josh, I think there's a possibility he can get to a certain level where his name and star is out there. I think if you move to 147, Sean Porter is one of the guys. Danny Garcia is another one of them guys.
Well, to be fair, Danny Garcia's gone to 154, but I get where you're going. I see the vision.
So you get the quote unquote start a fight, which still attracts you a big name. If you get a result in them fights, then you now have that platform to go to challenge for titles. Because a Crawford fight for me just basically means you're taking a big money payday and you will most likely lose, and it doesn't do it for you. Whereas this, I'm not saying it's as even, but it gives you and it gives fans more of a genuine interest to think, perfect, let's see what he can do. And I just want your opinion on that and how you feel if he goes to 147, how he should be managed.
I think you hit the nail on the head. If he goes to 147 and fights Crawford straight away, for me, it's a bit forced, it's a bit rushed. It's a bit Bob Arum trying to cash out on Crawford whilst he can and not really caring for Josh Taylor, which I think, like you said, you made a good point about Khan. A lot of the time, I feel like the British public didn't give Khan as much credit as he was due. But the irony was, in America, despite the losses, Khan had a lot of respect. And that's why Khan always fought in America a lot, because as much as, the British probably gave him some love, but I feel like in America, they really appreciate Khan for his attitude of, listen, I will go up against the killers and I will fight. It's either knockout or be knocked out. So always credit. And I think Josh Taylor has an attitude that the US will like. I think they'll like his brash character. I think they'll like his banter because he's got a nice personality.
Yeah.
That's why I was a bit confused at the disconnect of him here, because it's not like not to shoot down on him, but not like a boo-boo Andrade where it's just like, yeah, he's an all-right champion, but his personality kind of rubbed people the wrong way. Like, they call him the Tartan Tornado for a reason. It's true. Like, the guy's got a brilliant fighting style. Despite the fact, like I said before, this guy has technical capabilities that he doesn't even need to get into wars, but he shows that, listen, I can be technical, I can get into scraps, I can beat you at your own game, and either way, I'm going to win. And I feel like what you just said right now might be the best direction for him, for Top Rank to put more money into him. Or there could be the one circumstance, which is very thin and unlikely, but if Teofimo Lopez, I know he's a big boy for his division, if he moves up from lightweight and faces, and if Josh stays at light welterweight for enough time, he could face him. But in all honesty, I can't see if let's say Teofimo, he's got a fight coming up, he's got a mandatory, he beats him. I would have loved to have seen him first, Devin Haney, but I don't think that's happening. That division is just a mare right now.
Yeah.
So he's not exactly as undisputed, because we know how WBC just chucks out belts like sweets. So it would have been nice to see Teofimo Lopez, Josh Taylor, but Josh also looks like he's big for the division. So I don't know if he'll stay around. But at 147, it's dangerous because it's full of a bunch of killers. And obviously there's a big fight that's been announced in that division that we'll speak on later on as well.
Yeah. So literally just before we do actually talk on that, I want to know what all you guys, the audience, thinks. So you need to obviously share, like, and subscribe, and drop your comments. Do you think Taylor's been managed poorly? Where do you see his future at 140 and 147? And what's his next ideal opponent? But sticking on that topic of a big fight, let's talk about it right now. Manny Pacquiao, Errol Spence. It came out of nowhere. There wasn't anything. There was no hype, no build-up, no conversation. All the conversations have been constantly Crawford, Spence. Talk to me about this fight, Ray. Are you excited for it? Are you a bit nostalgic about Manny Pacquiao coming back after 2 years out? Where's your early predictions lying as well?
I feel so upset for one man's name that I've been bringing up throughout this whole conversation, Terence Crawford. For me, this should have been Terence Crawford's fight to finally get his name against an opponent that can propel him, because once again, mismanagement by Bob Arum, who's done Terence Crawford so dirty. This should have been Terence Crawford's fight. I don't even know how Spence and Pacquiao got made. Don't get me wrong, it's a good fight. I like it. In the words of Errol Spence, it's going to be another man down because Pacquiao's going to take a loss. But it's commendable on Pacquiao to take this fight. A little controversial hot take. Pacquiao took this fight because the Conor McGregor fight fell through. That's honest opinion. Pacquiao took the fight because Conor McGregor's fight fell through. I don't think that Pacquiao takes this. If Conor McGregor won against Dustin Poirier, I think Conor would have just said, cool, UFC, it's been nice, but see you later. Pacquiao would have said, cool, this is a nice final payday before I leave. And I think this is Pacquiao saying, I want one more big money fight before my days are done. And unfortunately for him, he's facing Errol Spence Jr. And this is going to be an absolute punishing fight for Pacquiao. He may prove me wrong, but listen, Errol Spence is not Furman. Errol Spence is a beast. He's a big man for this division. People even call for him to go up to 160 because he's a big lad for his division. And I think, like Errol Spence said, man down, man down.
I never thought about the Conor McGregor side of things, but when you said it, it just hit me that you're right. And there's nothing against Pacquiao. I mean, this is going to be his 72nd professional fight.
Crazy.
In that context, you don't see that. I think the only person realistically I can see putting up anywhere in terms of current boxing is Canelo because of how young he started. But yeah, I'm with you. I think, and I'll say this in the nicest way, I think this could end the way the Marquez fight ended. The knockout way. I honestly believe it's that bad. Or to the point where he gets a Kell Brook-esque style injury. And that's Manny Pacquiao going out on Manny Pacquiao, the brand, in terms of he always continued fight. He never knew when it was enough. Whereas Floyd knew when to call it quits. I don't think Manny has that in him to know when to call it quits until he gets into the ring with Spence and says, look, it's time to go and continue on with other stuff that he's doing outside of boxing, which he has been the focus. So I know you said it as well. What chance do you give? I know it's really early now. What chance do you give Pacquiao beating Spence, just at your percentage levels?
I don't give Pacquiao a big chance because even though obviously this is a 42-year-old Pacquiao who hasn't fought since he beat Keith Thurman for the WBA welterweight title in July 2019, and that was a good fight. But like I said, that was 2 years ago, and that was Keith Thurman. Spence, who has a record of 27-0. Just recently beat Danny Garcia after surviving an horrific accident. Spence looked like he's finally got his mind on track. He's got his body on track. And for me, it's either going to be a grueling battering by Errol Spence on Pacquiao, or it's going to be a late finish. I hope there's no long-term injuries that happen to Pacquiao from this fight. But like I said, Errol Spence is a dangerous fight for him. I understand for Pacquiao, at his age, you want to go out with one final fight. Like I said, I think he was banking on Conor. Conor messed up Pacquiao's bag. Crawford fight fell through, and I'm blaming Aaron for that because I think Aaron was probably thinking, this is Crawford at the last part of his contract with me. I don't want him. Maybe Aaron being spiteful is like, I'm not going to give Crawford another big payday before he leaves. So he's just going to let him run down his contract. And for Pacquiao, I think you hit the nail on the head. Mayweather knew when to walk away. But at the same time, Mayweather, I don't know if cherry-picked is the right term, but Mayweather fought certain guys at the right time, whereas Pacquiao is fighting these guys on their terms. Mayweather made people fight on his terms, and I think that's the big difference. And at his division at welterweight, Errol Spence is the biggest star. Even though popularity-wise he could be bigger, but in terms of Pacquiao, there's not too many big money fights, and that's the one that's left. And I hope that the battering is not going to be too harsh on Manny because there's very few fairy tale endings in boxing, and I can't see this being one of them.
I think you're talking about the fairy tale ending. I think for me, what would be the fairy tale ending would be Manny Pacquiao going 12 rounds with Errol Spence and just having a strong fight. And and then after that, he gives a genuine, in front of fans, because we will have a lot of fans there, obviously, gets the mic, just says that it's time to call it a day, and then you get that cheer and his family around there, just nothing bad happening. Because if you can survive this fight, you should understand that it's time to call it a day. Even if he looks really good. I think that's the thing that I think a lot of people will turn and say, why, if he looked really good against Spence and then calls it a day, people will say, why are you calling it a day? But you can look good on that day, but then still avoid anything. And I think that's, for me, what I would look at when it comes to Manny Pacquiao. In terms of this fight, just quickly, if Spence does somehow lose, because we're both on the same wavelength, what happens with Errol Spence? Is he taking a fight, like I always say, a lot of risk, not enough reward for him?
I think, here's the thing, I think boxing purists might see this as is a lot of risk and not too much reward. But I think for Spence, in the public eye, this is a lot of reward because Pacquiao is still a big name. That's still a good scalp to have on your resume. That's still a guy that draws a lot of people. So, yeah, the purists are going to say Pacquiao's past it. You're beating up an old Pacquiao. But listen, commercial-wise, this could be the catapult that Spence needs to finally get his name out there. If he loses, if he was to lose, then the Crawford fight's still there. But no, I think he'll probably need to maybe get 1 or 2 more wins. He might activate a rematch clause with Pacquiao, maybe, we don't know. But I'd still say it won't be the end for him because it's still a good fighter to lose to at the same time. If he was to lose, I can't see it. If me even saying Spence losing sounds ludicrous to me. But if he was to lose, I don't think it's the end of the world. It'll still be good for Spence because if you lose to one of the pound for pound kings of the last, you could even argue 15 years. Yeah, or beyond a decade.
Yeah.
This guy has been absolutely going crazy. You could even argue for the last 2 decades. It's like after Floyd, it's Pacquiao. So if Spence was to lose to that guy, it's not too much of a burn on his career. He can still bounce back. It would actually make it easier then to make the Crawford versus Spence fight because now it would be like no more arguments of all this 70-30 splits business, even though there's a certain heavyweight fighter who deserves a 30% split with AJ, but we'll go from there.
I think you literally segued us perfectly into this. We both on the same wavelength in terms of Crawford and Spence that we want to see. But here we go. Just touching on what has happened over this past week. Tyson Fury, he's confirmed it that he signed a deal now to fight Deontay Wilder. Obviously, we're going to touch on this in a lot more detail during the week. Talk to me about this because I know you have a lot of feelings about this. How have they dropped the ball on the biggest heavyweight fight I will say I will ever watch in my generation in terms of British boxing? I don't understand how you go into negotiations with Anthony Joshua. I know Eddie Hearn, of course, they're smart enough. They would have known this is in the back. But to be at a point where you were, and now we're looking at 2 separate fights completely. What's happened? Talk to me how the entire ball has been dropped on this. And who do you put big blame to?
It's like everything goes full circle. Remember when I said Josh Taylor has championship mentality? Fury does not have championship mentality. He doesn't. And I said this before in the previous episode where obviously it was a bit of hyperbole where it said, is Tyson Fury a fraud? But what I was implying is that this guy does not move like a champion. And I think what people need to understand is one thing getting a belt, is another thing defending it, keeping it, and being a champion. Fury, the same guy that people keep on rating so highly, who has never defended a belt, is doing the same type of antics he did when he got out of the Klitschko fight. It is the same antics, it's the same behavior. This guy is repeated behavior. And when I was saying it before, everyone's being like, oh, how can you say that? He's being harsh. He goes to America and he fights people in their back garden. He has no choice but to. He has no choice but to. Stop acting like Fury is some big fighting champion and all of this fighting words that he was talking and all of this stuff about, oh, I'm going to give my money to charity. We still don't even know where his money's gone. The guy is I won't call him a fraud, but it's fraudulent behavior, and I'm sick and tired of people defending it. I said it before, and it's coming to fruition. His team knew about this contract clause. His team could have set up that fight in 2020. The same way Joshua took on a mandatory, it's the same way Fury could have taken on a mandatory. They knew this, and they made Eddie Hearn run around do all these negotiations, and we saw this whole time there was no talk from Anthony Joshua. Anthony Joshua just waited for Fury to sign a contract, and the moment Fury finally announces it, then this Wilder news comes out. And for me, their team already knew it, because how convenient is it that Arum just had a stadium ready when this announcement was made? So then no one can ever tell me, oh, Fury didn't. Fury knew, his team knew, and guess what? It's like playing a game of bloody duck, duck, goose. It is crazy. Absolutely crazy. I'm not calling him the Gypsy King, because this ain't king behavior. This ain't championship behavior. The only good thing is that finally he's going to make a defense of a belt. But guess what? Do you know what? I'm actually rooting for Wilder now. It is ridiculous. It is. I was rooting for Tyson Fury the first 2 fights, but this time, listen, I hope Wilder lands one of those Hail Mary shots, because the type of behavior Tyson Fury's exhibited, and then he had the cheek to come for Anthony Joshua on Twitter. Shut up, Fury. Get in the ring, beat Wilder if you can, and then finally stop being a bloody coward and fight AJ. I'm sick and tired. I don't want to hear no one come up to me about how Fury's going to do this and that to Joshua after the mentality that Fury's shown. That guy is not a champion.
So
in name, not in nature.
You are passionate about this. And you know what? To be fair, we're going to have somebody come on later throughout the week. We're going to do another episode, hopefully, where we can obviously break a lot more detail.
More news breaks on it.
Yeah. But I'm going to be with you. Remember, Klitschko and him had the face-to-face for the second fight, and it just never materialized. So I am actually with you when it comes to this. And in terms of Wilder and Fury and how everyone's saying it, again, I can't even disagree with what you said, because you are Tyson Fury. Respectfully, you are coming back after your layoff with your problems and stuff. We understand that you got given an opportunity that you couldn't decline. So you would be silly to decline a world heavyweight title fight. Now, as for apparently this third fight, apparently there was like something that was meant to be brewing and stuff already, but it did get postponed because of coronavirus. And with that, Tyson Fury did say he had moved on. So I think in their mind, there was the possible idea that it is further forward with Tyson Fury and Joshua. But like you said, these people are very smart businessmen. There's probably also a reason why Deontay Wilder didn't really do anything post-Fury, because he had this in the back of his head and in the back of his mind, so his team did as well.
Well, we'll give the viewers a backstory. So obviously, Fury and Wilder battled to a controversial draw in December 2018 when they were fighting for the WBC belt. Then once again, Fury, listen, credit to him, he got in better shape, and then he stopped him 7th round in February 2020. And this is where it gets tricky. There was a rematch clause. Everybody knew there was a planned trilogy fight. Obviously, that was postponed due to the coronavirus and the pandemic shutting down the world. But in the back of everyone's mind, it was there. Now, Fury and his team, bear in mind, people, Bob Arum has been promoting fights longer than some of our older relatives have been alive. Literally. This is a guy that went to law school. He's not an idiot. So Arum knew for a long time that this court proceeding has been bearing over them. And the fact that Eddie Hearn, Matchroom, and AJ have been getting onto their team saying, are you sure there won't be an issue? Are you sure there won't be an issue? I don't understand why they thought that they could just get away with saying, yeah, it's fine. And then they went through the whole struggle of making Matchroom and Eddie Hearn and AJ look like idiots by constantly talking and saying, oh, the terms of contract isn't good. You lot aren't giving us a fair shake. And then literally they get one of the best deals ever in boxing history just for this to unravel it. And I'm just looking at them like, you knew this. You literally made Matchroom and Eddie Hearn, as much as Eddie Hearn looks like a villain sometimes.
Yeah.
This guy literally went to bat to make sure that you guys were sorted. And I even thought it was a bit fishy, the fact that why are they so dependent on Hearn to do the hard work? Why isn't Bob Arum or Frank Warren putting in as much effort as Eddie is? And now it's all making sense, because whilst Eddie was doing in the hard work to get that fight with Fury and AJ, Arum was doing the hard work to get the Wilder and Fury fight. How, oh my, it's baffling. How How convenient is that? Word to Cardi B. How convenient is that you had a stadium ready for Fury versus Wilder so quickly? Like, the terms have been signed so quickly. It literally took Fury so long to sign that AJ versus Fury. But yet, when it came to the Wilder fight, look how swimmingly everything's running. I'm not trying to hear nothing from no one. No one come back to me with Fury talk until that fight is signed for him versus AJ. And I know now that AJ's probably got a proposed fight with Usyk coming up. And I think, guess what? A champion defending his belt more times. Do you know who can't say that? Fury.
See, we'll just do this quickly before we wrap up then. Fury is going to have to defend his belt. I'm with you. I can't even disagree. Like, initially, when I saw the fight of Wilder, I just thought Wilder should just step aside. I did think that, but then I even thought about that a bit. Why should Deontay Wilder?
He shouldn't.
He shouldn't. He's there. It's set in for him to do. And if he wins Tyson Fury, well, then how longer do you keep Fury in the world title picture, and how quickly can you bring Wilder and Joshua? I know that there was stuff in the past between them that he rejected, which I think financially, I look at Wilder's team a little bit, and I think you guys also did it poorly. But when you talk about like the heart of a champion, Deontay Wilder is that. He did not want that towel throwing in. He didn't want any of that. We talked about other fighters previously quitting on this podcast.
Yeah.
With this fight, just quickly, do you see Tyson Fury coming out as the winner, or do you think Deontay Wilder can land one of them big shots?
You know what? I think what you said was very true in that people can say what they want about Wilder, but the guy had no quitting him when he was losing that fight, and he was getting pummeled. And like you said, he shouldn't have to step aside because Wilder's looking out for Wilder. Wilder's not a fan of this sport. This is still, people need to remember, yes, it's our entertainment, but this is his job. Wilder needs to secure the money for his family. So, of course, Wilder's going to say, do you know what? If I can become champion again, I'll be champion. The negotiations between Wilder and AJ broke down before because Wilder tried to be sneaky and get a win over Fury, obviously because Fury was coming back from where he had come from, the long battle with mental health, and salute to Fury for coming through that. But Wilder tried to catch Fury at a time when he was out of shape. That's the truth. It was just that probably Wilder just didn't expect Fury to be as good as he was. So then by the second fight, when Fury was actually in his best shape, it's like Fury showed him the boxing IQ. Don't get me wrong, I'll say slanderous stuff about Fury, but I'll also give credit where it's due. He's a hell of a fighter, word to Floyd. But mentality-wise, Fury has shown that he can't be champion. Like, listen, even if there was a case that he beat AJ, a lot of people even suspected that he would even retire before the rematch can happen because he doesn't want to defend the belt.
No, I was on the same wave. If he had beaten Anthony Joshua, had they had the first fight, I would have seen Fury retire because of what he said in previous interviews anyway. It's this, I've done this job, I've done this, I've beaten the best. Because on his resume, Klitschko, you would have Wilder, you would have Joshua, and you wouldn't, if his I guess, state of mind or whatever, what you need to do to prove anything else, you've beaten them, and especially if you beat them cleanly. So I would have seen a retirement probably happen as well. But yeah, carry on, sorry.
Yeah, I just feel like I said before, my background is also like I think my background is MMA for people that don't know. So then one of my favorite fighters and one of the best fighters of all time is a guy called Georges St. Pierre. And one thing that Georges St. Pierre always talked about was during his prime, he had left the division for a bit. Well, he did it. He's semi-retired, so he took a step away from the sport. And then during that time off, he took some time off. He came back, became middleweight champion, and retired again because of medical reasons. But during that time off, he spoke about the struggles and mental battle that there is being champion. It is not easy. It is really not easy when he speaks about and breaks it down. And I feel like what people give Fury the excuse of is like they let him get away with his antics without addressing the fact that this guy doesn't act like a champion. Like I said, Josh Taylor is a guy, that's a champion's mentality. He's got a championship mentality. He's the guy that went to America when he already had the belts. Whereas Fury didn't have the belt and went to America. There's a big difference. Josh Taylor's got a championship mentality. For me, Fury hasn't. He's champion in name, not in nature. Like I said, he'll get a fight. He might. This is going to be his first ever title defense. For someone that's bragged about being the best heavyweight ever, I mean, in his generation at least, how is this your first title defense? That's crazy to me. And even so, this wasn't even a planned title defense. He wanted to face AJ so he can possibly beat AJ and then retire. And there's nothing that's going to make me think otherwise with that.
I think I kind of understand where you're coming from because it's just out there. I think a lot of people do say, like, you can become a champion, but how do you defend yourself going forward as a champion? And there isn't anything to prove that you've done that. One person I'm going to touch on quickly before we do wrap up is where do we go with Dillian Whyte? This guy just seems like he always seems to be the guy that just gets that, like, I guess the A-B position, but never the A position. Where does he go going forward in this? Because he's just, again, just sat in the background. Is it going to be he just takes a Ruiz fight now, or what happens with him?
I feel like he's annoying because I know Dillian Whyte is high in the WBC ranking. Obviously, Tyson Fury's got that title right now. And all the belts are tied up for a while. Usyk's got lucky because now Usyk gets to fight that he was going to wait for to face Joshua. And I feel like Dillian Whyte's in a position, I don't know his financial situation. He might just want to wait out for a bit and then let everyone else fight it out. But he might be waiting for a while, especially with this Wilder first Fury 3 happening, and then the proposed AJ fight after that, which might even be a two-match series. So Whyte might just take fun fights in between, maybe like you said, against the likes of Ruiz. And to be fair, I don't even think there's too many people for Whyte to fight at this point. It's just Ruiz. Ruiz is the only fight maybe that's viable and that's good for him. That's got big enough name that it's a big money fight for Whyte. But if it's not Ruiz, then take your time. Take your time and sharpen your skills. But he's not a young boy as well. That's the annoying thing for Whyte.
Because the way you break that down, just again quickly, is if we have the Wilder fight in July, and we have the two fights when it comes to Joshua, we're looking late, if everything was to run perfectly, late 2022, maybe even somehow 23. And then, like I said, it's as much as we have heavyweight boxing the way it's not for Whyte to be holding back that long. You need to stay relevant. Obviously, boxers previously who've just faded out a bit. So it is unlucky for Dillian Whyte to be in the position that he's in, because as much as he's a star, he's not the A star. He's always the A-B star. Yeah,
so man, what a traffic wreck it is at heavyweight, but we'll see.
We'll see. And with that, we will just obviously wrap today's show up. Obviously, big thanks to you, Ray, for obviously coming on.
Love as always. Good show.
And we obviously need to send out a big birthday shout out to our own regular sparring partner, Steve the Rocky Roach, who will be here to talk that Joshua Fury stuff. But yeah, also,
I'm waiting for Steve. Once Steve has stopped celebrating his birthday, I'm sure he must be enjoying it. Nice time in Thailand. I'm waiting to hear these excuses that he's got for Fury. But guess what? Just like Fury, them excuses are gonna duck. So I'm ready.
Steve, you heard it here. There's the call out for you. So when you listen to this, you need to reply in the chat when you're up and ready, and we can go for round 3. This is like an open press conference where you've just got the spotlight. He's not turned up.
Exactly. Just like Fury didn't turn up, but that's enough shots for me.
Hey, another shot in there. But like I said, we were all waiting on Fury. Joshua, we've got Fury and Wilder 3. We've got Joshua and Usyk that's supposed to be. So we all need your comments. So everybody, with all this, just share, like, and subscribe. Stay weighed in and keep locked into all the sources where we put all this information out. We want your opinions on everything. So yeah, that's another episode for the Weigh In Podcast. Love for you coming in, and peace.
Love, take care.